Greenland is the world's largest island, sitting between North America and Russia, sparsely populated with only between 56 and 57,000 residents. Now, this is Pituffik Space Base on Greenland. It is central to the security considerations around Greenland. Here, the US Space Force conducts critical missile warning, missile defense and space surveillance using powerful radars and satellite tracking, leveraging its top-of-the-world location. The US military's NORAD, or North American Aerospace Defense Command, manages the US's northernmost installation, which includes a deep water port, airfield and facilities focusing on space, domain awareness and security. In June 2025, the US military moved Greenland from European Command, EUCOM, to Northern Command, NORTHCOM, reflecting its role as a frontline defense of the US homeland. As of January 2026, the Trump administration has designated Greenland a national security priority to deter Russian and Chinese influence in the Arctic. Tony, let me come to you first. So J.D. Vance says, Greenland serves, let me quote, as an anchor of world security and missile defense. And Trump says it is so important, so strategically important. Help us understand why.
Well, first of all, the Earth is a little bit flat. So going from the north end is actually the shortest route. So if China or Russia wants to launch missiles against the United States or anywhere in North America, it will go through the pole. Now, right now we have in Alaska early warning and also in Greenland. So it has the total monitoring of the whole northern area. And therefore, Greenland is actually really important because on any attack, you want to have a double verification. So you want both sides to be able to see it. And in Alaska, in Clear Air Force Station, we have an early warning radar there, and as in Pituffik. And also in Alaska, at Fort Greely, we have ground-based missile interceptors, so that when these sensors, this big radar, sees missiles coming from the north, these interceptors will be able to shoot it down. I suspect what Trump is thinking is maybe building additional interceptors on Greenland, because right now those interceptors on Alaska can capture majority of the missiles, but others from further to the other side, they might miss it.
So in terms of space orbits, is it true that the Arctic is where both of these space orbits as well as the missile trajectories, that it sits under both of these?
So for satellites, we will have the orbits around the Earth, but we also have polar orbit satellites that go around, that actually scan the entire Earth by going around this way, up and down through Arctic and Antarctic. So each of these satellites, when they see something, they have to downlink the information. So we need downlink station. And also you need the control stations that can fly it in case you need to move it. Okay, so you can only do that if the downlink station and control station can see the satellite. So once if it's on the other side of the Earth, you can't see it. So we have many stations all over the place, but on the northern area, that's it.
So that's the best vantage point.
Exactly, that's very, very important.
Yeah, so Martine, the next question, very important question is, so, what is it about US ownership of Greenland, which is what Donald Trump wants, versus keeping Denmark and Greenland as allies?
This is really a crucial question, and I, for one, doubt how ownership of Greenland would make it easier for the United States to pursue such endeavors in defense buildup, for example, by constructing a new series of interceptors, as we just heard, versus a new deal with Greenland.
I guess the argument from the Trump administration is that, on Allied territory, any expansion, which perhaps they have plans for big expansion, would require renegotiation. There would be public backlash. There would be delays. Isn't this just a case of them wanting sort of unity of command?
I fully agree with your interpretation that this might be the goal that the US administration has in mind, but at the end of the day, we should understand that even the Danish control over Greenland is an example of settler colonialism. Greenland belongs to indigenous Inuit people, and in recent years, we have seen very clear examples of mobilization along ethnic lines and calls for greater respect for traditional rights and autonomy of indigenous inhabitants of Greenland. Of course, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that the Trump administration might not be big on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but this level of public backlash would still happen, even if it doesn't occur among the publics in mainland Denmark, so to say. The indigenous movement of traditional owners of Greenland would definitely derail some of these plans, at least to a minor extent.
Right, okay. Tony, why do you believe there is the urgency now?
I think, well, one thing, one of the reasons Trump wants Greenland is for the minerals. So reduce the dependency on China for rare earth, for example, is one of the urgencies we have. The other is the way that China and Russia have expressed, especially China, to express their interest in the Arctic. You know, China called itself a near Arctic state, and they have dispatched a lot of ships in the area doing survey and stuff. So I think Trump is concerned if they actually exert more power in that region, more influence in the region. Of course, 7 of the 8 countries that have properties, the landmass in the Arctic Circle are NATO members. So I'm not sure how valid is that concern, but I certainly believe Trump would like to be able to control some of the critical choke points, like the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland. It's a choke point for Russian ships going down into the Pacific and Atlantic area, or rather. So I think he wants to have U.S. control just because he feels U.S. would like to do all this. In his mind, he wants to do many of the things alone, instead of counting on allies. Okay.
And Marcin, I mean, how much of it is, you know, wanting to maintain momentum, say, after the attack on Venezuela, and also, you know, their new Monroe or Donroe doctrine, which is control of the Western Hemisphere?
I absolutely see this new push to acquire Greenland as a part of a bigger project of asserting hemispheric control by the United States. However, I think it is also really crucial to distinguish the original Monroe Doctrine from this new avatar of the Donroe Doctrine, because the non-interference principle in the original Monroe Doctrine actually has 2 prongs. Of course, it referred to an effort by the United States in the early 19th century to limit European expansionism in the Western Hemisphere and defining the Western Hemisphere as Washington's backyard. But it also included a component of non-interference in the territories that were already controlled by Europeans at the time. So in a way, this effort to capture a territory that is an inherent part of a European ally has little to do with the original formulation of the Monroe Doctrine, and embodies
it goes against the spirit of the original.
It goes against the spirit of the original, so that's why the Donroe Doctrine is not the Monroe Doctrine.
Okay. Now, Tony, how much of it is also the development of hypersonic missiles? You know, is there an urgency created? If
our enemies in Russia or China use hypersonic and come through the poles, you want to detect it early, because you have satellite basically and pick up the minute of the launch when they get off the ground, and you want to be able to detect it and track it so that our defense system can engage early. Therefore,
how does it differ to the ICBMs from the Cold War era, and what does it require in order to track? Because I understand it can change direction, the hypersonic missiles.
Well, actually, it doesn't change direction per se. It changes altitude, because they still fly in the same direction. They don't go sideways that much. The fact is, it doesn't change that much, because you know it's coming, you know the direction is coming. The only reason is you can't intercept it as well, because it changes. Well, ballistic have a predictable path. Well, the hypersonic glide ones, that it moves, so you don't have a regular path. You have a direction, but you don't have the altitude. You need both to intercept it. So that's a difficulty. And does the Greenland issue actually improve that much?
I mean, perhaps. Do you think that the U.S. military actually just wants to pack that the space that they have with a lot more sensors, a lot more interceptors, basically create a like continental-style early warning platform?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually, if you look at the base, the Bidovik base now, there are areas that you can expand and build those shooters. But like I said, I suspect it has more to do with the mineral that we need.